The colony on Zareth Prime was quiet that morning. Pale sunlight spilled across the metallic cityscape, bouncing off the domed roofs and the sleek transport tubes. Commander Ethan Kane stepped off his shuttle, his boots clanging softly against the metal landing platform. He pulled his jacket tighter around him, though the temperature was comfortably warm. It wasn't cold, but the wind carried a sharp metallic tang from the nearby energy facility. He had been sent here for a simple mission, or at least it was supposed to be simple. Ethan's task was to inspect and repair a failing energy core aboard a research vessel docked just outside the colony. The ship, a massive structure of unknown alloys and glowing panels, belonged to the Illyrians, an alien species known for their advanced technology. Human contact with them was rare, and the Illyrians were cautious of outsiders. Still, the colony's leaders insisted that Ethan, a skilled engineer, could bridge the gap between human and alien technology. As he approached the airlock, the doors hissed open. The interior of the vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen. Soft light reflected off smooth surfaces, and walls seemed to ripple subtly as if alive. Panels flickered with shifting symbols, and strange humming noises filled the air. His boots made a muted sound against the floor, echoing faintly in the vast corridors. From around a corner came a figure, tall, graceful, with soft, natural beauty that seemed almost luminous in the calm interior. Her skin had a gentle golden hue, and her eyes were a deep shade of violet focused on the holographic projection she was adjusting. She moved with confidence, every step precise yet careful. Ethan froze for a moment, feeling a flutter in his chest. "Commander Kane?" she asked, her voice melodic but firm. There was a careful caution in her tone, as if she were measuring him before deciding how much trust to give. "I'm Ethan Kane," he said, stepping forward. "I'm here to check the energy core. I was told you might need assistance." The alien scientist studied him for a moment, then inclined her head slightly.
"I am Liara. I oversee the energy systems. Human assistance is
unusual, but the core is unstable. If you can help, I will be grateful." Ethan nodded and followed her down the corridor. The air grew warmer as they moved deeper into the ship. Panels on the walls shifted to display schematics, showing glowing lines and pulsing nodes. Liara moved swiftly, her hands tracing the energy streams as she explained the problem. Her language was precise, almost mathematical, and Ethan listened intently, picking up words and gestures he didn't fully understand. The core room was a tight, cylindrical space. The energy source thrummed in the center, surrounded by a lattice of glowing conduits. Ethan could feel a faint vibration through the floor, a steady pulse that seemed almost alive. Liara handed him a set of tools, strange alien devices that adjusted their form in her hands. "These are compatible with human manipulation," she said. "But be careful. One wrong touch and the system could overload." Ethan knelt beside the core, examining the glowing conduits. He had worked on unstable systems before, but this was unlike anything on Earth. The materials seemed to respond to thought as much as touch, and the energy thrummed with a life of its own. He looked up at Liara, who was crouched across from him, adjusting a panel with delicate precision. Their hands brushed as he reached for a tool, and for a moment the hum of the core seemed to fade, leaving only the awareness of proximity. "Be careful with that connection," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. Not fear, not attraction, but a sudden recognition of trust. They were working together in a space smaller than most rooms on Earth, yet it felt like a shared rhythm, each movement responding to the other. Hours passed as they stabilized the core. Sparks of light arced across the conduits, and the air buzzed faintly with energy. Liara explained each adjustment in her careful language, and Ethan followed, translating her movements into human engineering terms in his mind. Occasionally, she would reach over to guide his hand, correcting a placement or adjusting the pressure he applied. Each contact was brief, almost accidental, yet it carried a weight neither of them acknowledged aloud. Finally, the core stabilized. The throbbing pulse softened to a steady glow, filling the room with a calm light. Ethan leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at Liara. She smiled, a small, almost shy curve of her lips. "You did well," she said. "Few humans could manage this without damaging the system." "And few Illyrians trust humans enough to allow it," Ethan replied. His words carried no boast, only honesty. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. In that confined space, they had navigated not just technology but a subtle bridge of communication, respect, and cooperation. Their bodies remained inches apart, yet the emotional distance seemed to shrink with every shared glance, every careful adjustment of a tool. The ship's alarm sounded suddenly, startling them both. A red light flashed and the hum of the core shifted into a higher pitch. Liara's eyes widened slightly, and she gestured for Ethan to follow her. "Another section needs attention," she said. "The stabilizer panels in the aft sector are malfunctioning." Ethan nodded, moving quickly beside her. As they navigated narrow corridors, their movements were synchronized, almost instinctive. The ship's interior was unfamiliar, yet they found a rhythm in their steps, a silent teamwork that grew with each passing minute. They reached the aft sector, where the panels flickered erratically. Ethan knelt to inspect the first panel, and Liara hovered over his shoulder, her hand lightly touching his back to guide his angle. The contact was brief, but it sent a shiver down his spine. He focused, reminding himself that this was about work, about trust, about solving a problem together. Minutes stretched into an hour as they adjusted each panel, rerouted energy flows, and calibrated the systems. Liara explained the function of each mechanism, and Ethan adapted quickly, using both his human intuition and the alien instructions. Their conversation was sparse but effective, punctuated by gestures and shared understanding. Finally, the panel stabilized, the lights returning to a steady glow. Ethan exhaled, leaning back to stretch his tired muscles. Liara stepped beside him, her hand brushing his as she handed him a small tool. Their fingers lingered for a heartbeat, and Ethan felt a connection that had nothing to do with attraction or desire, and everything to do with respect, admiration, and understanding. "You've adapted quickly," Liara said softly. "Humans are resilient," Ethan smiled, "and Illyrians are precise. I've never worked with technology like this before. Your guidance made it possible." The moment lingered, a quiet pause in the midst of the humming ship. They stood inches apart, yet in that distance a bridge had formed, one built of trust, collaboration, and mutual respect. It was a bridge neither of them could see, yet both felt its strength. As they returned to the main corridor, Ethan glanced at Liara. She caught his gaze and gave a small, approving nod. For the first time, he felt that the gap between human and alien, between engineer and scientist, was not unbridgeable. Their bodies might be inches apart, but their understanding had crossed the divide. The day ended with the core fully stabilized and the ship quiet once more. Ethan prepared to leave the vessel, but Liara stopped him. "Commander Kane," she said, her tone carrying a note of curiosity. "You will remain on board until the final systems check is complete, will you not?" Ethan nodded. "Of course. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." She inclined her head slightly, a subtle smile on her lips. "Then we continue together. This mission is only the beginning." Ethan felt a thrill, not of desire, not of romance, but of something rarer. The thrill of collaboration, of crossing boundaries, of standing beside someone who challenged him, guided him, and trusted him in return. As they walked down the corridor side by side, the hum of the ship seemed less intimidating, the vastness of space less lonely. Together they were stronger. And so as the stars outside the vessel sparkled in the distance, Ethan and Liara began a partnership that would bridge not just systems and technology, but the subtle unspoken connections that defined human courage and understanding. In a universe filled with unknowns, they had found a way to stand together, just inches apart, yet closer than either could have imagined. The next morning, the research vessel was alive with activity. Holographic panels floated above consoles, each one displaying data streams that Ethan barely understood. Crew members moved gracefully along the corridors, their movements precise and calm, a stark contrast to the human habit of rushing through tasks. Ethan stood beside Liara in the main engineering bay. The room was long and cylindrical, with conduits of glowing energy running along the walls. The air vibrated faintly, charged with the hum of active systems. Liara pointed to one of the panels. "The external stabilizers are offline. Without them, the core could overload if energy spikes continue." Ethan knelt beside the console, studying the alien symbols and diagrams. He had learned to translate their logic into human terms, but it was still complicated. Liara crouched across from him, her violet eyes scanning his movements, her long fingers adjusting delicate panels. Every so often, their hands would brush. It was brief, almost accidental. Yet Ethan felt a spark of awareness, a reminder that they were not just partners in a technical mission, but companions, navigating unknown territory together. We'll need to reroute the energy flows manually, Liara said. The automated systems cannot handle the irregular surges. Ethan nodded. Show me where to start. For hours they worked side by side, carefully moving through the steps required to stabilize the ship. Ethan guided the tools with human precision, while Liara's knowledge ensured that every adjustment was correct. There was no conversation beyond the technical instructions, yet in the silence a rhythm emerged. Their movements complemented each other perfectly, like two dancers learning the steps of a new choreography. At one point, Ethan reached across to tighten a conduit. Liara's hand guided his briefly, correcting the angle. Their fingers lingered an instant longer than necessary, and Ethan felt a strange warmth. It was not desire in the usual sense, but a deep acknowledgement of trust. Their connection was quiet, subtle, and growing stronger with each task completed. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. A warning light flashed, and a low hum rose to a sharp pitch. Ethan and Liara exchanged quick glances. The external shield, Liara said. They're overloading. We must stabilize them immediately. They hurried down a narrow corridor toward the aft section. The corridor was cramped, forcing them to move in close proximity. Ethan's mind focused entirely on the task, but he could not ignore the fact that Liara's presence so near made the danger feel more urgent and the stakes higher. They moved as one, adjusting panels and rerouting power lines, the air vibrating with energy around them. One particular section of the shield panel sparked dangerously. Ethan reached out instinctively, and Liara's hand landed over his. Together they redirected the energy safely, preventing a system-wide failure. Both stepped back, breathing heavily, aware that for a moment they had relied entirely on each other. You reacted quickly, Liara said, a hint of admiration in her tone. Humans are unpredictable, but effective, Ethan smiled. And Illyrians are precise. I've learned a lot watching you work. They paused for a moment, catching their breath in the dim glow of the panels. The ship felt enormous, yet in this small compartment with the hum of energy all around, they were connected in a way neither had expected. Their bodies were inches apart, yet the distance felt irrelevant. It was as though every movement, every glance, every shared decision was another link in an invisible chain of understanding. After stabilizing the shields, Liara led Ethan to the observation deck. The deck was circular with transparent walls offering a panoramic view of space. Stars stretched endlessly, glittering like scattered gems across a dark velvet canvas. Ethan felt a quiet awe. Despite all the alarms, the technical challenges, and the tension of working in an alien environment, moments like this reminded him why exploration mattered. Liara stood beside him, her posture relaxed, though her eyes never left the stars. I have never seen a human so patient with alien technology, she said. Most would have grown frustrated or given up. Ethan chuckled softly. Patience is learned the hard way. Besides, when you're this close to someone who knows what they're doing, it makes the work easier. They stood in silence for a while, letting the stars speak for them. It was the quiet understanding between two beings from entirely different worlds that held the most meaning. The bridge between them was not built on spoken words, but on shared effort, trust, and respect. Suddenly, the ship jolted. Ethan grabbed a nearby handrail as the observation deck trembled. Liara's hand found his arm instinctively. External attack, she said, her voice calm but tense. Sensors detect a rogue fleet approaching. We must act immediately to protect the vessel. Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. This was no longer just a repair mission. It was survival. He and Liara moved quickly to the control center. The corridors were narrow, and the energy surges made the floor hum with a dangerous intensity. Once again, they worked in close quarters, adjusting panels and rerouting power. Every action required precision, and the risk of mistakes loomed large. Despite the tension, Ethan noticed how naturally they moved together. Liara's eyes guided him, her hands adjusted his movements, and he followed without hesitation. The proximity that had felt charged before now felt essential. They were two minds, two beings, working as one in the face of an unknown threat. Hours seemed to pass in minutes as they coordinated the defenses, Ethan's human intuition paired with Liara's precise knowledge of the ship's systems. They activated the shields, rerouted the energy, and ensured that weapon systems were ready if needed. Each success built trust. Each minor setback tested their patience and cooperation. When the immediate threat passed, the control room quieted. Ethan leaned back against a console, exhausted but exhilarated. Liara adjusted a panel nearby, her face calm but her eyes reflecting the tension they had endured. "You are reliable," she said simply. "I did not expect that from a human." "And you are patient," Ethan replied. "I have learned more than I thought possible today." There was a pause. Both of them understood the depth of what had been shared, not in words, not in gestures, but in actions and presence. They had faced danger together, solved impossible problems side by side, and relied on each other completely. The distance between them was still inches, yet the bridge of trust, respect, and understanding was already strong. Liara stepped closer to a console, adjusting the readings. Ethan followed, unconsciously mirroring her movements. Their shoulders brushed, and for a moment neither moved away. The contact was brief but meaningful. It was a reminder that human courage and empathy could inspire connection, even across the most alien boundaries. "Tomorrow we will complete the final checks," Liara said. "The vessel will be fully operational once the systems are synchronized." "Your help has been invaluable," Ethan smiled. "I'll be here. I want to see it finished. Besides, working with you has made the impossible feel possible." The day ended with the ship stable, the stars outside calm and distant. Ethan walked back to his quarters, reflecting on the events of the day. Every moment of tension, every spark of understanding had built something remarkable. Not romance, not attraction in the usual sense, but a deep admiration and trust that bridged the gap between human and alien. As he settled into his bunk, he thought of Liara, of her calm focus, her intelligence, and the subtle way she had guided him through challenges. Their bodies had been inches apart, yet the connection they had formed was vast and undeniable. In a universe filled with unknowns, he realized that courage, empathy, and understanding could be as powerful as any weapon or shield. Ethan drifted to sleep with the soft hum of the ship in his ears, ready for whatever challenges awaited him and Liara next. They were partners now, bound not by words but by shared experience, trust, and a bridge that could cross any distance. The warning lights on the vessel blinked in a rhythmic, urgent pattern. Ethan's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline that came with knowing the unknown was approaching. Liara stood beside him in the control room, her hands moving swiftly over the alien panels. Even in the midst of chaos, she maintained an air of calm precision that grounded him. "Sensors indicate multiple rogue ships approaching," she said, her voice steady. "They are heavily armed and they are targeting us directly. We have no time to waste." Ethan nodded. "Then we stabilize the external shields and prepare defensive measures. I'll follow your lead." They moved through the narrow corridors to the external stabilizer room, a confined space filled with humming conduits and pulsating energy nodes. The room was dangerously hot, the air thick with charged particles. Ethan and Liara worked in tandem, their bodies inches apart, coordinating each movement with silent efficiency. A spark of energy jumped from one conduit to another. Ethan instinctively reached to redirect it, and Liara's hand covered his, guiding his movements. The contact was brief, but for a moment it felt as though their connection was more than just professional. The hum of the ship seemed to fade, leaving only the rhythm of their synchronized actions. "Careful," Liara said softly. "A single miscalculation could overload the shield array." Ethan adjusted his grip on the panel, following her guidance. "I understand. Let's keep it steady." Hours passed in a blur of calculations, rerouted energy, and precise movements. The rogue ships closed the distance, their silhouettes visible on the observation deck's panoramic screens. Each ship bristled with weapons, yet Ethan and Liara remained focused. They were a single unit, their trust in each other allowing them to act faster and more decisively than any automated system could. At one point, a surge from the core threatened to destabilize the forward shields. Ethan reached for the control lever, but Liara's hand pressed against his, halting him. "Not yet," she whispered. "We must synchronize with the aft stabilizers first." He nodded, grateful for her guidance. Together, they rerouted the energy flow, aligning the shields in perfect harmony. The room vibrated with power, and for a moment Ethan felt the raw force of the ship's systems beneath their feet. Liara's presence beside him made the challenge feel less daunting. Her calm determination was contagious, and he realized that his courage, usually his own, was now shared. The rogue fleet fired a salvo, and the ship shook violently. Ethan gritted his teeth, holding onto the console, while Liara stabilized the energy conduits with practiced ease. Sparks flew and alarms blared, yet their focus never wavered. They were connected not by words but by shared purpose, each anticipating the other's moves, each trusting the other completely. "Almost there," Liara said. "Just a few more adjustments." Ethan nodded, following her precise instructions. His hands moved quickly, adjusting panels, redirecting energy, and ensuring the shields could withstand the next attack. Liara's guidance was flawless, her eyes scanning multiple displays at once, reading patterns in the energy flows that he could barely comprehend. Finally, the external shields stabilized. The rogue ships fired again, but the vessel held firm. The impact rattled the hull, sending vibrations through the floor, but the systems remained intact. Ethan and Liara exhaled simultaneously, a quiet relief passing between them. "You did well," Liara said, her voice carrying a note of genuine admiration. Few humans could have handled this with such precision. "And you," Ethan replied, smiling, "managed to keep your composure even under extreme pressure. I've learned a lot from you today." They took a brief moment to rest, leaning against the console. Their shoulders brushed, and for a heartbeat neither moved away. The contact was subtle, almost accidental, yet it spoke volumes about their growing bond. It was a bridge of trust, courage, and mutual respect that no distance or danger could break. The rogue fleet, however, was not finished. Sensors indicated that a smaller group of ships had bypassed the shields, attempting to breach the vessel's hull. Ethan and Liara exchanged a quick glance. "We need to divert power to the internal defense systems," Liara said. Ethan nodded. "Let's do it." They moved to the internal defense control room, where the narrow space forced them even closer. Panels lined the walls, and energy conduits ran beneath their feet. Together they rerouted power, activated automated defenses, and monitored the incoming ships. Every action required precision and trust, and their proximity made their coordination seamless. A warning alarm sounded, indicating a hull breach in a nearby section. Ethan and Liara raced toward the affected area, moving with careful urgency. The corridor was tight, the vibrations from the ship's shields making each step precarious. Liara reached for a panel, and Ethan followed her lead, their hands brushing as they adjusted the system to contain the breach. The air was thick with tension, yet their focus never faltered. Ethan marveled at Liara's calm determination, how her presence seemed to steady him even in the face of danger. They moved as one, their actions synchronized, their trust in each other absolute. Finally, the hull breach was contained. The ship shuddered as the last of the rogue fleet retreated, their attacks repelled by the combined efforts of the human engineer and the Illyrian scientist. Ethan and Liara stood side by side, breathing heavily, their faces flushed from the exertion. "You were remarkable," Liara said softly. "I did not expect a human to adapt so quickly, to anticipate the system's needs with such accuracy." "And you," Ethan replied, "taught me more in a few hours than I could have learned in years. Your guidance made all the difference." They shared a brief, quiet moment, looking at each other with an unspoken understanding. The danger had passed, but the bond they had formed in those intense hours was undeniable. Their bodies were still inches apart, yet the emotional distance between them had disappeared completely. As they returned to the control room, Ethan reflected on the events of the day. The rogue fleet had been repelled, the vessel stabilized, and the crew safe. But more importantly, he realized that the true strength of humanity lay not just in technology or strength, but in courage, empathy, and the ability to form connections across even the most alien boundaries. Liara walked beside him, adjusting panels and monitoring the systems. Ethan admired her focus, her intelligence, and the calm way she handled every challenge. In a universe filled with unknowns and dangers, she had become a partner he could rely on completely. Later, as the vessel drifted peacefully through space, Ethan and Liara stood on the observation deck once more. Stars stretched endlessly before them, and the hum of the ship was now gentle, almost soothing. "We make a good team," Ethan said, breaking the silence. Liara smiled faintly. Yes, we do. I did not expect that a human could be so reliable. But you have proven me wrong. Ethan chuckled softly. And you have shown me the value of patience and precision. I've learned more about courage and understanding than I could have imagined. They stood together inches apart, looking out at the stars. The rogue fleet was gone, the ship safe, and yet the universe remained vast and unpredictable. But in that moment, they had found a bridge, a connection built on trust, cooperation, and mutual respect that no force could break. For Ethan, the events of the day had revealed something profound, that true courage was not just about facing danger, but about standing beside someone you trusted, learning from them, and forming a bond that could overcome any obstacle. And for Liara, it was a reminder that understanding and collaboration could unite beings from entirely different worlds, creating strength far greater than any individual could achieve alone. As the stars twinkled outside, they remained close, still inches apart, yet closer than either had ever been to another being. The bridge between human and alien, engineer and scientist had been built through shared trials, silent understanding, and unwavering trust. It was a connection neither could see, yet both felt with absolute clarity. And as the night stretched on, the ship drifting silently among the stars, Ethan and Liara knew that their partnership had only just begun. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together, united by the invisible bridge that spanned the distance between two very different worlds. The morning light streamed through the ship's observation deck, casting soft patterns across the floor. Ethan stood beside Liara, both of them watching the stars slowly fade as the distant suns of Zareth Prime rose on the horizon. The vessel was quiet now, its systems fully stabilized after the recent attacks. Yet even in this calm, there was a sense of anticipation, an unspoken understanding that the universe was never truly at rest. "Final system checks are complete," Liara said, turning toward him. Her violet eyes sparkled with a hint of relief, but also something softer, something more personal. "The vessel is fully operational. The energy core is stable. The shields are reinforced and the internal systems are synchronized. We have done well." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "We did this together. I couldn't have managed without your guidance." Liara smiled faintly. "And I could not have done it without your human intuition. The unpredictability you bring is remarkable." Their eyes met, and for a moment the distance between them seemed irrelevant. They had faced danger together, solved impossible problems, and relied on each other completely. It was not attraction in the traditional sense, but a deeper connection, mutual admiration, respect, and trust that had grown in the hours of crisis and collaboration. The ship's soft hum filled the silence, a gentle reminder of the life they had restored and preserved. Ethan felt a calm settle over him, a quiet satisfaction that came from knowing they had succeeded not only in technical terms, but in something far more intangible. They had bridged a gap between worlds, proving that human courage and understanding could complement alien precision and wisdom. Liara stepped closer to a console, her fingers brushing against a panel as she reviewed the final data. Ethan moved beside her, unconsciously matching her movements. Their shoulders touched lightly, a subtle acknowledgement of the bond they had forged. "You've grown accustomed to working with humans," Ethan said softly, breaking the quiet. "Or at least with me." Liara tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing at her lips. "I have learned that humans can be adaptable. You approached challenges differently than I expected." "It was enlightening," Ethan chuckled. "I could say the same about Illyrians. Your precision, your patience, it's inspiring. I've learned more from you than I thought possible." They paused, looking out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched before them, endless and mysterious, yet in that moment, they felt a sense of unity that transcended species and origin. They had been through tension, danger, and high-pressure scenarios, and had emerged stronger, more capable, and more connected. A gentle alert chimed from the console, indicating a routine diagnostic check. Ethan moved to assist, his hands deftly adjusting the settings while Liara guided him with her calm, precise instructions. Even in these mundane tasks, their teamwork was seamless, a continuation of the partnership they had built under fire. "You have a talent for understanding systems quickly," Liara said. "Humans often rely on instinct, but your intuition, it complements strategy well. And your guidance complements my intuition, Ethan replied. I never thought I would learn so much from someone who doesn't speak my language fluently, yet somehow communicates everything essential. There was a moment of quiet laughter between them, a release of tension after the long hours of work. In that laughter, Ethan realized that the connection they had formed was more than just professional. It was a bridge built from shared experience, trust, and mutual respect. Suddenly, the ship's communication panel beeped, indicating an incoming transmission from the colony. Liara accessed it, her fingers flying over the controls. The holographic projection of the colony's administrator appeared, smiling faintly. Commander Kane, Liara, the administrator said, we have received word that the rogue fleet has been intercepted by our patrols. Your actions saved the vessel and potentially prevented a disaster across the system. Excellent work. Ethan and Liara exchanged a quick glance, sharing a moment of quiet pride. We acted as a team, Ethan said. And the ship is now fully stabilized. Nothing else remains at risk. The administrator nodded. Your partnership has proven invaluable. The colony owes both of you a debt of gratitude. After the transmission ended, Ethan and Liara remained in the control room, the quiet hum of the ship surrounding them. Ethan realized that the events of the past days had taught him something profound. Courage and skill were important, but the ability to connect with others, to trust, and to work together was what made true heroism possible. Liara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. Commander Kane, you have exceeded my expectations. I will remember your methods, your persistence, and your calm under pressure. Humans are remarkable, Ethan smiled. And Illyrians are extraordinary as well. Working with you has been an honor, Liara. They stood in silence for a while, the distance between them inches, yet it felt insignificant. In every shared glance, every cooperative movement, every decision made together, they had created a bond that transcended physical proximity. The vessel, the stars, and the universe around them seemed to acknowledge it, quiet witnesses to the connection forged in the crucible of necessity. Eventually, Ethan moved to a console and activated a diagnostic sweep, ensuring every system was functioning perfectly. Liara guided him, her hands occasionally brushing his as they adjusted settings. Each touch was brief, professional, but it carried the weight of trust and understanding built over their shared experience. The day passed quietly, with both of them completing final checks and making minor adjustments. There was no danger now, only the satisfaction of accomplishment and the unspoken acknowledgement of the bond between them. Ethan felt a sense of calm, the kind that comes when one knows that challenges have been overcome, and that partnership has been proven beyond doubt. As the stars outside shifted and new constellations appeared, Ethan and Liara returned to the observation deck. They stood side by side, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The rogue fleet had been repelled, the vessel was stable, and yet the universe remained full of unknowns. Still, they knew that together they could face whatever came next. Ethan broke the silence. Liara, this mission, it's been more than I expected. We've done so much together and I feel changed, stronger, more aware, more capable. Liara turned to him, her expression thoughtful. And I have learned that trust and collaboration can bridge any divide, even between species. You have shown me the value of courage, patience, and understanding in ways I had not anticipated. They shared a quiet moment, the hum of the ship and the glitter of the stars forming a backdrop to their unspoken acknowledgement. The bond they had formed was rare and profound, built through shared trials, cooperation, and unwavering trust. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice calm but sincere. No matter what comes next, I know we can handle it together. Our partnership, it's stronger than I ever imagined. Liara nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Yes, stronger than I imagined as well, and that is what matters. As the vessel drifted silently through the stars, they remained close, still inches apart, yet closer than either had ever been to anyone else. Their connection was unspoken but undeniable, a bridge that spanned worlds, experiences and differences built on courage, understanding, and mutual respect. Ethan and Liara knew that whatever challenges awaited them in the vastness of space, they would face them together. The human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage he brought complemented her precision, wisdom, and calm. Together, they had proven that even in the most alien and challenging environments, connection, trust, and understanding could triumph. And as the stars stretched endlessly outside the observation deck, they stood side by side, inches apart, yet united by something far greater than proximity. A bridge forged in the trials of danger, the triumph of collaboration, and the quiet acknowledgement of mutual respect and admiration. In that moment, the universe felt a little smaller, a little safer, and infinitely more hopeful. For Ethan and Liara, the distance between them had never mattered. Their bond, their shared courage, and their understanding had bridged it completely. And as the ship sailed onward into the unknown, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, partners, allies, and kindred spirits, forever inches apart, yet closer than ever.